key points of achievement of intra-Africa trade, we need to add an eighth one, which is infrastructure integration agenda. And without that, we will not be able to move goods within Africa. And you did see the Minister for Trade, the Honorable Moses Kuria, saying that the tea that Kenya was importing to Ghana in October last year arrived sometime this year, which is
actually 3 months.
3 months. 3 months later.
It was meant to take 3 weeks.
It was meant to take 3 weeks. And you do realize that when we are importing goods from other parts of the world, like China, Japan, name it, the goods arrive here much faster. And here we are taking 3 months to take our tea to an African country, where we should actually take a week or so.
Which is less than 5,000 kilometers.
5,000 kilometers. If you are to consider moving across the African continent, maybe using a land bridge, like the Lapset corridor, which has been mooted to integrate the east coast of Africa with the west coast of Africa, we would actually be able to move the goods there within a week. So without integration infrastructure, we are going to continue to lose the opportunities that we have. But in addition to that, we need to note that some of the best parts of Africa, the most fertile parts of Africa, whose arability are even 90% plus, are even untouched. South Sudan has arability of 90%. In Kenya, we are just 30% arable. Central African Republic also has a very high level of arability. DR Congo has a very high level of arability. But look at the elements of integration with these countries. We lack infrastructure that can connect us directly with these regions, within the region, so that we can be able to do business between these countries. And unless we build infrastructure, as I'm saying, we will still have a long dream before we can arrive at the big, the big mark.
Very well. And I like the fact that you are bringing in the issue of the arable land here in Africa. And we know for sure that Africa holds about 60% of the global arable land.
Correct.
But you have a population of about 1.3 billion people. And out of these, 798 million people are food insecure.
Starving.
They are starving.
Yeah.
So how do we address this, honestly?
First and foremost, drawing from the dream of the African Union of a 2063 agenda, in which we expect the continent to be integrated, we expect to have built the real infrastructure that will bring us together. We expect to have achieved peace and security and silenced the guns. That is a big dream by the African Union, that we need to silence the guns by the year 2063. So how do we therefore arrive there to achieve peace? Because without peace, we cannot do agriculture. Without peace, we cannot do intra-regional development. Without peace, we cannot strengthen trade. So to strengthen peace, we must build the infrastructure that will connect us, that will give people, that will make the opportunities that people are looking for available at their doorsteps, within their areas of production and within their areas of trade. And for us to be able to do this, it also means that we must fast track the business processes within Africa. So in my view, we need to achieve peace in Africa. And you do realize that these areas that are so highly arable have also not been very stable for very many years. So going forward, one of the biggest agenda of the African Union, which we really need to use to drive the FCFT agenda of a high growth rate in intra-Africa trade, is to achieve peace, build integration infrastructure, and strengthen local production systems.
You see, this it's common knowledge, and as Africa, we accept this reality that we are the least integrated continent in the world. When you compare our integration with that of, for example, Europe, which is one of the most integrated continents in the world, we don't feature anywhere. So how comes all the 54 countries, we are so good at talking, but when it's time now to do the walking, this is where we fail. So how do we correct that anomaly?
I would like to say that for far too long, the 54 countries in the continent have been driving what we call an inward based agenda, and a countrywide, an in-country based agenda rather than a regional agenda. And of late, you've seen the drive towards the regional economic communities like the East African Community, the ECOWAS, the SADC, and the others. So the more we are now driving towards regional integration, the more we are bringing ourselves into bigger blocks, the more we are trying to appreciate that if we want to go far, then we have to go together with the rest of the other countries. Then we will be going to get there. We will be getting there. But for very many decades, African countries have been acting alone. They've been acting separately. They've not been having joint agendas for development. And even the FCFTA, you've seen that the FCFTA just came live last year. If we had FCFTA coming live in the 1960s, in the 1970s, perhaps we could have gone very far. You've seen that the regional transportation corridors, which are now 12 in number, whether you're talking about north-south, whether you're talking about Central Corridor, whether you're talking about the Lapset Corridor, among many others, these corridors have also, a number of them have been there, but the development of these corridors has equally been quite dismal. And we've seen that the pace is now picking up, particularly with regard to development of the transportation networks to connect the corridors. We've seen that in the year 2012, the African Union, in unveiling the Agenda 2063, did put forward a program for infrastructure development for Africa, what is popularly known as the PIDA program. And in this PIDA program, the African Union is taking note of the fact that we need to build 37,000 kilometers of new roads in Africa if we are to integrate. If we are to 37,000 kilometers of new roads. I'm not talking about new roads.
This is not recarpeting.
This is not recarpeting, this is not rehabilitation, this is not repairs. These are new roads which are lacking. And we already said that the interior part of Africa is completely an island of every part of Africa. The program is also saying that we need to build 32,000 new kilometers of new railways if we are to integrate Africa. We need to put in place added capacity for African ports to the tune of 1.3 billion tons. Because if Africa is to do trade within its own self, then the 60% arability that we are talking about must be translated into production, must be translated into goods, whether processed, whether improved in terms of value, among many other things. And these goods are not just meant for Africa alone. If we are having the globe's 60% of arable land, then we should equally contribute not less than 60% of global consumption, of goods to be consumed across the globe that are derived from the agricultural sector. So Africa needs to rise to take its rightful place in the globe.
The fact that now trade ministers from around Africa, are now meeting here, and these are some of the issues that are being discussed in this hall behind me. Is this a sign that finally this conversation is coming into life?
O'Brien, I would say that it's absolutely that way. And if you did hear from Minister Kuria this morning, he did say that this is the first meeting they are having under the FCFTA banner. Going forward, we need these meetings to be backed by practical actions that are going to enable the African continent to open itself up for intra-African trade. That framework equally needs to build synergy between countries. We have different parts of Africa that produce some of the best raw materials that are required by other parts of Africa. We have different parts of Africa that have got the big resources that are required in the global market. We are currently talking about electronic vehicles being manufactured in other jurisdictions, whether you're talking about China, Europe, America, among the others. But where are the materials, where are the minerals that are used? Yes, that are used for to support the manufacturing of electronic vehicles. They are here in Africa. Even if you go into components of these particular vehicles, like the manufacture of batteries. The materials are here in Africa. The manufacture of solar solar panels and solar batteries. The materials are here in Africa. And yet, under the global climate change agenda, we know that we are supposed to move towards net zero emissions by the year 2050, with the significant achievements being posted by the year 2030. And yet, the things that are required for the globe to achieve that are actually found in Africa. So we should actually take advantage of the fact that we are currently having the materials that are so dear to the globe going forward to now provide the platforms for the production of the inputs into the industries that are producing the things that are going to make much, much more meaning across the globe. Like the electric cars, African governments should now manufacture what are required as inputs into the electric vehicles. And we should also host a number of the electric vehicle plants in the continent. So what I'm saying going forward is that the continent is rife with the materials, with all the elements that are required for high technology production systems that are compliant with the climate change agenda. And Africa's time is now.
It is now.
Africa's time is now.
What I'm getting from you is that it is high time Africa exploited 90% of its natural resources that are yet to be tapped for its own socio-economic development. Before I let you go, Sylvester, I also want to hear from you in the next 2 days of these conversations. What should we look forward for, or what do you expect to come out of these meetings?
Yes, O'Brien, having put this meeting in place, the continent has realized that there is so much that we can do as African countries if we come together. This meeting has brought together ministers of Africa dealing with matters trade. And this meeting has brought together institutions that rally the African continent towards its next level of development. We are talking about the African Union and its various institutions, whether like the FCFTA. We are talking about institutions that are partners with the African continent, like the UN, among others, being found in this meeting. We have the private sector, for the first time, joining together with governments, with African governments, joining together with African ministers of trade, who are the real policymakers in Africa, to find a way forward. From this meeting, therefore, I'm expecting that we need to draw our roadmap for pragmatic, for practical, and for achievable results. I therefore need to see a clear roadmap rather than mere reports that we are going to file on the shelves. I don't expect stories that you will be running for this week, and then after that you close it, and the next meeting you start to dust and say, we remember Kiko 3. We talked about this. From here, I want us to go to the ground to start to implement the roadmap that will come from this meeting.
Concrete roadmaps.
Concrete roadmaps.
That will help unlock
Africa's potential.
Very good.
And to drive Africa towards real integration.
Because Africa is home.
Africa is home, and Africa is the home of all the resources that are required to take the globe forward. Yeah.
Sylvester, thank you so very much indeed. We're going to be here with you for the next 3 days. And of course, this is the kind of conversation that we are going to have. And we're going to ensure that, the people who are watching these conversations, they are well updated on what is happening behind these closed doors. Otherwise, your time is highly appreciated.
Thank you.
Very good indeed. Sylvester Kasuku.
Thank you.
Is not a foreign face on this screen. He has always been very kind to us, coming to our shows, and helping us understand and breaking down for us, very complicated topics. He is the past CEO and Director General of the LAPSET project. He's now the African Center. He's now the Executive Director of the African Center for Transport, Infrastructure and Regional Integration. Joining us here to help us understand what kind of conversations have taken place during the first day of the Kenya International Investment Conference, which is taking place here at the Safari Park. Remember, Kenya Broadcasting Corporation is the official media partner for this meeting, and that's why we are giving you day-to-day and minute-to-minute coverage of this critical meeting. My name is O'Brien Kimani. We are here today, we are here tomorrow, and even until the end of these conversations. Stay right here.
From the mountains to the ocean shore, we see it, we hear it, it's Kenya's call. From the cities to the fields of gold, we taste it, we feel it, it's Kenya's call. Iwapo unakohoa, unahisi uchungu kwenye kifua, uchovu kila wakati, joto jingi mwilini, unakosa hamu ya kula au kupoteza uzito haraka bila kukusudia, na kutokwa na jasho jingi usiku, waweza kuwa waugua TB.
Yani mimi sifai kusafiri.
Disco haikuwa tosha. Maona sasa mtafute faragha ya hoteli, wende mwenyewe mkajivinjari vizuri.
The only woman that I want in my life is mine.
Hakuna penzi lililoko sawa. Watu wawili lazima watatatizana tu.
TB yaweza kuangamiza jamii yako. Usikubali. Matibabu ni bila malipo katika hospitali zote za serikali.
Start your life here.
It's not enough for me. It's just not enough.
You don't know what they do to girls like you.
I think he's having an affair.
Cindy.
That's her name.
Sorry, who is your father?
That's a couple of